War Report family, y'all know what time it is, man. Listen,
Woo.
we don't do it for every transfer, but the quarterback position is just different. Like you guys should know by now, the quarterback position is just
Mm.
different. So when there's QB news, we have to go live and get you all an opportunity to talk about it. We would normally just wait until a normal live, but we are here. Robbie Ashford commits to Auburn. New quarterback coming to the Plains. Your boy Ike Jones, Mike G here. Just hey, let's rap about it, man. What you feeling?
Well, okay, so got to go on record that this is not a surprise to anybody at the War Report. Uh,
True.
we talked about Ashford just a little bit, but you guys know how we do about like rumors, and when we find out things, I don't want to spoil it for the kid. So, it's his news to put out there how he wants to. But now that he's committed, we can talk a little bit more about what we knew. He was at bowl practice the Monday before our game.
Yeah.
Now he
Hoover.
went to school at Hoover, right? And
Right.
so it's not a shock that he was in town and in the area. But we had heard rumblings that he was not happy at Oregon and was looking for a change, and Auburn might be a good place. So the talks with the coaches started in December. Now, when all the Caleb Williams rumors started floating around, that's why I never believed it.
Yeah.
I never believed Caleb Williams to Auburn was a real possibility. I don't think
Well,
that he
I think it
fits
was a possibility. I just don't know that it was going to ever be a reality based upon other stuff that we've heard about what he wanted, right? Like,
right. And what this coaching staff is looking for, I mean, you'll take the most talented guy if he wants to come here and compete.
right.
But at the end of the day, was Caleb Williams a culture fit for what Harsin is building?
The thing that you said is crucial there. Does he want to come and compete for a spot, or does he
Correct.
want to be getting guarantees to say, hey, if I come there, I'm going to be your starting quarterback? And I don't know that that's the Harsin mantra or moxie about how he wants guys. He wants guys that want to come in and compete for a spot, not be gifted a spot,
Right.
right? Whether someone is the front runner or not is kind of irrelevant. It's about who wants it more when it's time to compete and camp opens.
Yeah. So a lot of people thought, Calzada would be the default starter
Mhm.
if Williams chose not to come here. So, but I want to talk a little bit about Robbie Ashford because the Debbie Downers are out already on social media about this commitment. This is a fantastic commitment for Auburn football. Now he's a great athlete.
Well, he's the anti TJ, right? Like he's everything that TJ Finley is not.
Yeah, like he's got he's gonna come here and compete. He's a two-sport guy. The last thing I heard was he still plans on at least attempting to play baseball while here.
Okay.
He's a great baseball athlete. However, before he had quit baseball at Oregon in an attempt to focus on the starting QB job. And here's what I need people to understand. Oregon fans were excited about Ashford last spring.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he started out like fourth on the depth chart and then rocketed it up in the spring. And they were speculating that he had a chance to take that starting job from Anthony Brown. So he made great strides. Ultimately, sometimes experience is tough to overcome for some guys.
Mm-hmm.
But he is a mature kid. I think that he fits what Harsin is trying to build here. And ultimately, again, nothing has been promised though.
Right.
So if you're here and you're willing to compete and you're willing to do what's asked of you, I think that you will get a shot. I'm not sure. I'm going to go on record and just say I'm not sure how forgiving this staff is for guys who have some like halfway burned bridges.
It doesn't seem to be very much at all.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this for a second because we can't have this discussion about Ashford without talking about the current construct of our QB room. Now, who do we have left? We got TJ Finley, who played in 4 games, right? More than 4 games, but he started 3 and he finished off 1. And we've got D Davis, who has not taken a snap in a game at Auburn.
Right.
Now, let me go on record and say I was very high on D Davis last offseason when he committed to Auburn. All the talent in the world, super high talent ceiling. And I think maybe even a little overlooked and underrated. A lot of fans were calling for him at the end of the season.
Right.
But I'm going to go on record now and say based on what this staff is doing, I don't think that D. Davis ever takes a snap at Auburn University.
It's unlikely as it looks today, right? Like you've got Robbie Ashford, who has 4 years of eligibility left. You've got TJ Finley, who has, I think he still has a COVID year, so it's probably 4 years of eligibility left because I think he technically was a red shirt last year. If he's a sophomore, he's only got 3. But anyway, he's still got a ton of eligibility. Holden Gariner hasn't even hit campus yet. All his years of eligibility left. Zach Calzada still has 2 years of eligibility left.
Correct.
So there's a lot of people with actual game snaps right now, too, in front of you already, right? Like Zach Calzada and TJ Finley are probably starting out ahead of Demetrius Davis on the depth chart. And that means he's competing with Robbie Ashford for a 3rd spot and Holden Gariner for the number 3 QB.
Correct.
Right, to start. Now, I'm not saying where he would end that competition. I'm just saying if I were to venture a guess about if we released a quarterback depth chart today, it would be TJ Finley, Zach Calzada, Robbie Ashford, D. Davis, Holden Gariner, all holding potential number 3, and those first 2 fighting it out for number 1.
Yeah, I agree with that. This is going to be a competition. This is going to be a competition. So Zach Calzada, invaluable in-game experience. I mean, he won some big games,
right?
At a good school behind a not so great O-line this year, and he'll have to do some more of that. At this team, I think that he can do very well here. So I actually have high hopes for Calzada.
Yeah.
He's got the arm. If he gets healthy, I think he can compete. I think this is a smart move to bring somebody in to compete, especially, some guys are just not the same after injury.
True.
So, Calzada has all the ability, but how well does he come back from this shoulder injury that he had last year? So I'm looking forward to seeing that battle. As far as TJ Finley is concerned, I think he'll be here to compete during the spring. You cannot discount the time that he put in with this staff.
For sure.
He knows the expectations. He knows what's expected of him. And he has a chance. Any player has a chance to raise their game. A lot of people feel like they've seen TJ Finley's ceiling already. TJ would beg to differ. So if he's willing to stay and compete, I'm willing to entertain it. Right. Yeah. Then there is Robbie Ashford, who, he's the shiny new thing that nobody's seen before. But this is somebody that this staff chose.
Correct.
Now, people have been asking me, they've been DMing me on Twitter, they've been asking me on social media, what's happening with all these transfers. Now, not anything that's not happening at any other SEC school right now. However, at Auburn, I think that a lot of the transfers that we're seeing are more driven by this coach and staff cleaning house a little bit, based on things that they want to see, a culture they're trying to establish and an attitude that they want players to have. I've seen some things like on social media that just are cringy from some of our current players. And I can't, and this staff is watching social media.
Well, you have to. This is a day and age where you have to know what guys are doing in different spaces because they're representatives of your program. They're representatives of your university. Correct. And so, especially in the day and age of NIL, like this is the other side of that, right? Like you're no longer the college athlete that gets to go out there and do what they want to. You're a representative of the university and whoever else is paying you money, right? And so a portion of that is reflected in how your school, because any NIL deal has to go through the university, right? So you have to help manage that relationship with that athlete.
Correct.
So they have to. They have no choice but to just figure out what's going on in those accounts.
Yeah, I expect to hear about a transfer here shortly. I do. I expect to hear about a portal transfer here in the near future. Now, it may have to happen quick for some guys. It may have already been in the works. So it's not like this is going to be reactive if we see a transfer. I think the staff has been pretty open about communicating what direction that they're going, and you're seeing guys preemptively make the decision in their best interest, knowing what direction the staff is trying to go, right? And being told whether they're a part of it or not, whether they're a part of the plan or not. Now, if you did what was asked of you during the season and you competed and you made yourself a non-distraction, off the field and on social media, I don't see any reason why they wouldn't. But this culture thing, that Harsin kept talking about this season, I don't think it can be just overlooked and dismissed in this conversation. He wouldn't let it go. And he just kept saying, I've got to rebuild culture here. I've got to rebuild culture here. I've got to rebuild culture here. Right. And, to rebuild the house, you have to relay the foundation sometimes. And the foundation of this team was built with guys who may be good guys, but maybe not bought into his process.
Right.
And his way of doing things. And, you need guys who are going to be bought in. So Ashford had that opportunity, right? He had a school. He got a chance to sit down with these coaches, hear what their vision and their plan was, and then decide to come here. That matters. We got a couple super chats here I want to get to. JT Martin says, I don't want to sound like I'm not happy about this commitment because we can use all competition, but at this point, I need to see some wide receivers. There's some truth to that. I will tell you, I think you'll be surprised what you see from our current receivers with a more accurate quarterback.
Yeah.
So just the same way the receivers can help the quarterback can help the receiver. So I think that goes both ways. Chris Lester says the QB room looking kind of full, guys. If one leaves, who would it be? We kind of covered that. Listen, I don't expect it to stay that way.
Yeah.
Now, if you're holding Garner, you should not be scared by any of this.
Yeah.
This is your chance to just come in. They chose you. You stay committed, learn the system. He should not be in a rush to play this year.
Yeah.
At all. He should not be in a rush to play this year. Take some time to develop. Let that O-line develop in front of you, right? Let them go out and recruit some skill positions around you. And, when it's your time to take over, you're maybe taking over a more established program rather than being called on to be the savior of Auburn football. So I think that's a much better situation for any quarterback coming in, and that allows us to build a pipeline of guys. Where the new guys aren't being called on to save the season. They're just coming in and they're becoming part of the process where we churn out good players at that position year after year.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, just kind of the rhetoric that's ratcheting up around the program in general, from people. A lot of people just making a lot of assumptions of wildly just, I won't say inaccurate assumptions, but just a lot of assumptions floating around about the nature of things. But, in this instance, I think what's proven to be true is that Bryan Harsin has a very firm idea of what he wants to do as a coach. Mm-hmm. And some people are buying into that and others are completely out on it, right? And we're seeing a rapid exodus, and we're seeing, I won't say a rapid response from other people wanting to come here, but we are seeing culture fit people, or people who say, you know what, I'm buying into that. I want to come in and do what this coach is asking us to do.
Right.
So I don't think that there's anything necessarily wrong with that. Definitely want to go here again to some of these chats. Thank you guys for hopping in here. Random live.
Late on a Monday.
And, we don't have, I don't know that we have answers. Like, people are asking, have you heard about this? Have you heard about that? I don't know that we have any definitive answers. We probably have heard the same rumors that you all have about why people have exited, why people have come, who's potentially going to be here. We don't have a ton of that information, more than what you all probably already know, or if it's floating around on message boards and all that kind of thing. So the truth is somewhere probably in the mix of all of that somewhere, but I don't have any of those answers.
I will tell you this, though, and I'll say it kind of as a blanket statement. Some of these transfers that we're seeing are guys being handed their walking papers.
Yeah.
And the coaches giving them a chance to control the narrative around why they left.
Yeah.
And everything we know about this staff is they're not into throwing people under the bus.
Correct.
But they do want to quietly move on and transition into what they're trying to build.
Yeah.
So, almost every question you can ask us about a player who's leaving now can come back to that. That's what you're seeing right now.
Yeah.
You're seeing the exodus of an old
particularly
culture.
The ones that seem inexplicable. It's like, yo, wait a minute.
What
happened with that? Like,
yeah.
9 times out of 10, again, I'm not saying that's 100% true. It's a situation where a player was either behind the scenes not a culture fit or unhappy about the direction that their perceived place on the program was. Mm-hmm. And the coach said, okay, we're not going to argue about this. Like, you are where you are right now. You can either work to get to a different place, or you can go find some place where you're going to be happy, and I'm good with that, right? And that's a very kind of harsh way to put it. I don't know what the actual conversation was, or it was a listen. We've been dealing with this all season. We've got an opportunity for a reset right now. The portal is open. You go find a place that you feel like fits better, but it can't be Auburn, right? And so they're allowed to enter the portal without a bunch of, such and such has been cut from the team type of thing. So it's usually something like that. But again, it's in order for you to get to a place where you have buy-in from everyone, you have to allow people that opportunity to leave, or you have to give them, show them the exit without kicking them out the door.
Right. Right. So I like this commitment. I do. I think he's a talented kid. He kind of got away from us, man. Like, this is a kid. This is an Alabama kid. I think he was like number 13th overall player in the state that went way out west to Oregon. And there was no reason that he, kid like that shouldn't have been able to stay home. But he's a dynamic arm talent. I think he's got a high ceiling. He's a little underdeveloped, but he has a chance to come in and just, work on his craft. Now, the other thing that I'll tell you about this quarterback race is the winner is going to be the guy who does the most on his own. Right. This is going to be about the guy who takes the initiative, that does not have to be spoon-fed everything and can just go out and work, right? This is the time where a quarterback should be grabbing his receivers or his potential receivers. Because if I'm Ashford, from the moment I step foot on campus, I'm looking at that depth chart and I'm saying, okay, Kobe's gone. Who's here that caught passes in 2021?
Right.
Let's go hit the field, right? Get to know me.
Said the exact same thing about everybody else. We wanted to see TJ Finley do the same thing. Wanted to see Demetrius Davis do the same thing. I don't know where Zach Calzada is in his rehab. Hopefully when he touched down doing the same thing, right? Like what's important is finding a way to build that chemistry in the offseason so that when it's time to produce results during the season, you've already, I know how you run the routes, how you throw the routes, what kind of looks we're going for in certain spaces, and just getting better as a unit, right? Because that, I think, has been a portion of, again, I get the offensive line has been a problem, and we can talk about some of the offensive line guys that have decided to come back and, what we're doing and looking at portal guys and all that sort of thing. But the chemistry between wide receiver and quarterback has been off. It's just not been where it needs to be. And we have to figure that portion of it out as well.
Correct. We got some more super chats here. Big Gap says, appreciate the coverage, bros. Word to him. We appreciate you, dude.
Yep.
We are in here with you guys on a Monday night. Stuart Down says, all these transfers originally from Alabama is like we're rewriting history. Like a time heist. Yeah. That's funny. It is true. It's giving, the portal is giving guys a second chance that decided to leave home, and maybe that wasn't the best decision for them. And they're getting a chance to come back around and do their thing here and compete here where there is a great area of need. Now, I'll tell you, it's funny, where I went to, my high school has put out some really good football players. I went to Central High School in Phoenix City. And when I was in high school, I knew some kids who were really good at football that played for Central. They were brothers and decided one brother went to Alabama and the other brother followed them up there just so they could both walk on the team. Mm-hmm. And I'm telling you, both of those guys could have been stars at Auburn because we were taking the best guy. There was no politics involved at the time. And, this staff feels really close to that. They're really trying to find the best guy for the job, right? I thought they both wasted their football careers going to Alabama. Just caught up in the allure of Bama at the time, right?
Right.
And now Harsin is just saying, he's taking guys who, if you're Ashford, right, you feel maybe a little underappreciated, kind of overlooked, and ready to compete and come in. And there's no way you're not looking at this QB room and saying, I can beat everybody out there. No way. I mean, Calzada, I would say, probably is the front runner just based on accomplishments and pure number of games started. But I don't think anything's been promised to him. I think they were real with him about what his chances were to win the job based on what he was going to be up against.
Right.
But the writing is on the wall for the guys who have been in this QB room. So mainly Dede. Right. I'm, and I know a lot of people are not going to want to hear this. I'm kind of sad about having to say it out loud, but I'm just not sure where he fits in this QB puzzle here with his, I think, 4 years of eligibility remaining.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Listen, all the talent in the world, and we'll see where it goes. For the last, I guess, since we've known he was going to be redshirting, I don't know how many months that's been. We have been fans of what perceives to be, or what we've perceived to be, his off the field work ethic of just going out there trying to get his throws up and all that kind of thing. But also, more recently, critical of some of the things that he's done in his social media that have led to a lot of unnecessary speculation. That doesn't mean that he's going in. Listen, we're not writing a eulogy for Demetrius Davis right now at Auburn University. I don't know what the future holds for him. I hope we do get to see him play in an Auburn uniform, because I still do think he's a supremely talented quarterback and athlete. But the question of whether or not he ever realizes that is 100% on him, right? Like, I don't know that the coach is out here, despite what people might feel, picking and choosing favorites. He's trying to go with people who he feels like are working the hardest. And that, again, last year we felt like that was to the detriment specifically of the wide receiver room, right? Like, the most talented guys aren't seeing the field. It is, what you would say, Mike, experience over talent, right? I don't know that it was experience over talent. I think it was effort over talent. Now that the more that this is unfolding, it was more so who's willing to work harder, Sunday through Friday. That's who sees the field on Saturday. And so that may very well be the case in the quarterback competition now, that experience isn't even close to the biggest factor, right? Like, you don't have an entrenched 3-year starter. You've got guys who've played less than a full season, and now who's going to step up? And we'll see that very soon. Who's going to step up?
Yeah, like Ashford was a top 300 player, right? Like, he was a top 300 overall player. He had a .9006 composite rating coming out of high school. And let's see here. What are they rating him? I wonder what they're rating him as a transfer now. Does he have a higher or lower rating?
I don't know. I haven't looked at. So I'm going to be honest. Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I haven't seen a ton of, there's not a bunch of film out there, number one, on Robbie Ashford, and other than his high school film. So there's not a ton for me to be able to evaluate as far as how well he plays. What I did like about the high school. So if you're new to the War Report and you have no idea who I am a film guy, right? Like, I like to watch film and try to see what's going on, but I am adamant in saying that I don't like evaluating a player based upon their highlights, because of course you're going to look good in your highlights. But what I do like to look and see in highlights are what types of throws are being displayed if there's a quarterback, right? Like, if the War Report wasn't in existence when Joey Gatewood was a recruit for Auburn, I was never high on Joey Gatewood, because if you go and look at his high school film, the vast majority of it was quarterback runs, or it was him scrambling around and players ended up being open because of a scramble drill. It wasn't him operating from the pocket and making decisive reads, throws, hitting guys in stride type of stuff. He was throwing to guys that were wide open, or he was running through people, around people, past people. And I was like, that doesn't excite me as a quarterback prospect. I don't see that on the film of Robbie Ashford. I see some of that, right? Like, he's a supremely talented athlete, but I do see him making throws down the field to guys in stride. I do see him operating from the pocket a little bit, a lot of arm strength. But again, those are highlights, and that's high school. So I'm not saying he's going to be some supremely dominant physical specimen at the college level, but I do see some things that are there to work with. He's a raw prospect, though, at this point, because he hasn't played any college football.
Right. I'll tell you what I do like right now. Right now, I am on Twitter, and if you look for Robbie Ashford, you see exactly 0 from Robbie Ashford.
Apparently his mom likes to get on social media and talk a lot, though. So,
like, listen, his mom is one thing, right? Because you can't control the parental units. They're grown people. They can do what they want. However, from him, I'm telling you, a lot of these current players are getting themselves in trouble with social media.
Yeah.
And Ike, man, when I'm telling you, this staff is watching.
Mhm.
The coaches are watching. They got people watching the things that you put on social media, and some of the immature games, man. It's just you're digging your own proverbial grave with this
Yeah.
stuff on social media, and it's not going to be forgiven or forgotten, right? So I hope that Ashford comes in quietly, puts his head down. I hope he's the loudest I want to hear from him is in the huddle.
Yeah. And
That's
on the
it.
sidelines
On
with
the
his
sideline.
guys, right? Like, and that's the thing too. You know, I'll still take a moment. I know a lot of the Auburn fan base is out on TJ Finley, and you know, for some good reason as far as what his play produced. But the thing I liked about TJ was the rapport that he was able to build quickly with his teammates, right? Like they looked to him as one of the guys pretty early on in the process. Hopefully, Robbie Ashford can come in and do the thing. Hopefully, Zach Calzada can come in and do the same thing. Figure out how to galvanize with his teammates, get buy-in from that offensive line, get buy-in from those receivers and tight ends, and help running backs understand that it's not going to all be on you this year, Tank. Like, I'm going to help you out. I'm going to hit the wide receivers know if I got a guy beat by 2 yards, it's a touchdown. Right? Like, it's not going to be me going back to the huddle with my head down. It's a touchdown, right?
Right.
Zach Calzada needs to be able to look a guy in the eye and say, if you're open, I'm going to hit you, right? Which he did. And so for all of the things that I immediately, again, not having done an in-depth look into the quarterback room, which now that we're starting to see who those guys are going to be, I'll probably start to do more evaluation on those players. That's the one thing I did like about Zach Calzada was his deep ball accuracy and his moxie to be able to stand in the pocket and deliver some of those throws downfield, even under pressure. And that's really what we need. Listen, if you hit the guys when they're open and you make that defense have to respect it, Tank Bigsby becomes a very happy young man.
For sure, right? I mean, again, defenses have to back up just a little bit. Lanes open, and it takes some pressure off this offensive line. Now, people are screaming about the offensive line. By the numbers in pass protection, they didn't do that bad last year.
People they were average. It wasn't phenomenal. It wasn't as terrible as people have been advertising it.
Right, yeah. Now, run blocking was a different story.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, run blocking was atrocious. Pass blocking was good enough to get the job done. We just needed everybody else to raise their game as well. And it just seemed like it was never fully cohesive at any point in the passing game. So when the line did block, we were missing passes, or when the quarterback did make good throws, we were dropping passes, right?
Correct.
Like, or
that's what I'm saying. That cohesion between the quarterback and the receiver, it just wasn't there.
It wasn't all the way there, yeah.
But listen, the games where we put it together, we were putting it on guys. In the Arkansas game, when Bo Nix was slinging it, the offense looked
good.
It looked great in that game. It looked great first half against Ole Miss because the quarterback's delivering the ball where he needs to do it. The receivers are catching it, and now you make it impossible to stop Tank then. So he has a better first half in that game because we're able to play complementary football, right? Like we're not we've proven that our offensive line isn't just going to line up and run over people. It's that's just not how we were built. Again, I don't want to put blame anywhere. It just is what it is. It's a legacy of kind of how that offensive line was composed prior to Harsin and his staff coming on board. But you're just not going to line up and bully people. So you have to be able to play complementary football. You have to be able to be accurate and on time with your throws because they're going to load up the box and then they're going to dare you to beat them deep.
And that's what you have to do. Yeah. Right. Look at the team that won the national title, right? Stetson Bennett did not a ton of amazing things. He just made those timely throws. He didn't miss his deep balls when he had a chance. And he managed the game and then just made plays when he had to. Right. That's all. That's what we need from Auburn, just on a more consistent basis. That gives the receivers a better chance. When you trust is another thing. It was funny when we talked to Devin Aroma-Shadu about quarterback play. And him and Ben Obumanu were talking about trust between a wide receiver and a quarterback, right? So there was this silly, if you get your hands on it, you got to catch it, and that's it. No nuance to that. Like people were spouting that stuff, and I was kind of throwing our receivers a bone. I was like, listen, there are a lot of very inconsistently thrown balls out there that break the trust between the receiver and the quarterback, right? So if you're going out there and I got to worry about where you're going to put the ball, I'm playing slower. I'm running my route differently. I can't play the game the same.
Yeah.
Right. But when ball placement and timing and accuracy is there, I can play fast. Right. And all I have to do is worry about getting my hands in the right position, catching the ball, and then making a play after that. That's what we need from our quarterback. We need that trust between the receiver and the quarterback to be there so that whether it's Ashford or Calzada or TJ, because I think that's what the quarterback room is going to be.
Yeah. I mean, there's an outside chance for the other two, but like, listen, if I were a betting man, which listen, I'm not a betting man, but I do fantasy picks.
Yeah, shout out to Prize Picks.
Right, not a fan. I'm more of a fantasy guy these days. I'm not a betting man. That's B Will's job. But if I were, I would be putting my money on one of those three horses right now.
Correct.
Like the other two would be an outside lean. The chances of them being starter day one, not saying that they will never, because Holden Geriner, unless something crazy happens in the next 2 years, will be a starter at Auburn University eventually. He's got the physical tools necessary to do what Brian Harsin asks of a quarterback and what I believe Austin Davis will ask of a quarterback. But
right.
I would say one of those three that you just named would likely be day one starter against whoever we're playing. I don't even know. Western
Carolina we're so starved for quarterback play at Auburn because we have been deprived of that for the better part of the last 2 decades. And when we have found lightning in a bottle at quarterback for a season, the results have been amazing. Right. So Jason Campbell's last year, right? Cam Newton, Nick Marshall's first year, Jarrett Stidham's first year. When we've been able to find dynamic quarterback play, it seems like the ceiling for this team is unlimited.
Right. Yeah. It's right. Literally championship level. And again, it doesn't have to be a dynamic guy. Jason Campbell wasn't some.
I wouldn't call him dynamic. Yeah.
He wasn't some remarkable athlete who was out here running around making plays outside of the pocket. He was just decisive and accurate.
Yeah, he had a good arm.
Yeah.
Right. And he followed instructions very well.
He understood what was called of him to do, and which is why he was a career pro for so long. He could come in to whatever system it was. He proved it in college. That doesn't matter what the system is. I'll figure it out, and I'm going to get out there and I'm going to go play ball, and I'm going to deliver the ball to open receivers. I'm going to take sacks when it's not there. I'm going to throw the ball away when I'm supposed to. If you give me an opportunity, I'll go pick up 5 or 6 yards for you with my feet. Right, like. Wasn't complicated. He didn't play a complicated brand of football, but he played the type of football, again, I'm going to use this word, that was complementary to a good running game. If you have a good running game, Jason Campbell's the perfect quarterback because he's going to allow you to hand the ball off first and second down, maybe even third down, right? But when it's called on and you need 3rd and 7, he's going to deliver it. When you've got to make the big play at the end of the game and you need someone decisive and accurate who's going to make smart plays, he was the guy that was going to do it. That's really all Auburn has needed since 2019 because the defense has been good enough to be able to do something else.
Right.
We just have not had that consistently enough in order to win enough football games.
Yeah, we just get in this mode where we blame the quarterback. We overly blame the quarterback, or we overly blame the offensive line, or we overly blame the wide receivers.
Yeah.
Right. And there's talent in each one of those position groups. Right. And so I felt like a lot of people did not properly acknowledge the games that the O-line played well this year.
No.
Right. And then again, on offense, there's a synergy and there's an effect that each group can have on one another. If you're a receiver and you're not getting separation, it's going to affect your line and your quarterback.
Correct.
If you're not winning your matchup, right, it's going to affect your line. And so that can't be understated. If you're a line and you can't hold up in pass protection, it's going to affect your receivers and your quarterback. That's an undoubted fact. Right. The part that we don't talk about it enough is if you're a quarterback and you leave the pocket early or you hold on to the ball too long or your ball placement is bad, it affects the other two groups as well. Auburn fans did not like to talk about that aspect of it, but it was all a problem at some point.
They've had no problem the last 5 games. talking
Oh
about
well,
that.
yeah, right, yeah. It was funny after TJ starting. It was interesting to hear all the criticism of the offensive line disappear somehow,
Yeah.
and then it was just him that was the problem. It was like, oh, I was like, wait, but that was the same line
Yeah.
that we've had all year,
Yeah.
right? And he's less mobile, so he should be more affected by that. Or maybe the line just wasn't as bad as everybody was saying they were all year.
I mean, they were what they were, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
again, we've said this already. The offensive line was not spectacular. They weren't terrible. They had their busts, which again puts them right there in the middle of this entire situation. Now, I will say this definitively: TJ Finley had his opportunities to make big plays for
He
Auburn
did.
University while he was in here at quarterback, and we said this definitively after the Birmingham Bowl. He had his chance to make this a non-issue going into the offseason.
Yeah, man.
And
He
put
could.
supreme trust in the staff, supreme trust in the fans of his ability to lead Auburn as an offensive unit. And he didn't do that. He left it up for question right now. And that's why this conversation is 100% relative with Zach Calzada coming in and now Robbie Ashford coming in.
Yeah.
You left the door open and people are walking through it. So I'm hoping, I saw apparently his immediate reaction was like a bunch of laughing emojis on one of his stories, either Instagram or something like that.
Yeah.
If that's your reaction, bro, like you kind of have to look at yourself and say, yeah, I invited this smoke. So are you gonna stand up and be like, hey,
Yeah.
listen,
How will
it's
he
still my
respond
spot?
to it?
Yeah.
How will he
Or are
respond
you
to
just
it?
like, oh man, this is some bull, I'm out of here?
Because
like, that's up to him.
no matter where you go, there's no route where there's not a ton of hard work involved moving forward. So you can take this challenge head on, right? And just fight for the job. That's how you create a pipeline of guys.
Yeah.
Right. And then when the coach comes back and says, oh, we feel like we have 2 or 3 guys who can do the job, that shit can actually be true for a change. Right. So that's where I'm at with TJ. He had some opportunities. His opportunities were just so limited because of the situation that he was put in. Those are the cards he was dealt. There's not much you can do about that.
Yeah.
Right. And the coaching staff kind of took that. I personally didn't think it was very fair to him because there were times this season where he could have been inserted that it made more sense and he could have gotten into a better flow of things before everything became a disaster. Right. For developing guy. I thought that was important, but he just didn't get that chance. So you got to put that behind you and you just have to move forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think he had enough games though to be able to figure it out, and he just didn't do it. Right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
let's go to the chat here real quick, and we'll get back to this. Quentin Lee says it will be TJ. He's confident TJ is. I don't know if this is you're saying it will be TJ leaving or it'll be TJ starting. I want to know what you're actually asking or saying there.
I think he says TJ leaving.
Interesting. So
Yeah.
of the quarterbacks, you think TJ's the one out the door. James Stallings, appreciate the super chat. He says, happy about Ashford, but basketball question, how scared should Georgia and Kentucky be with a pissed off Auburn basketball team? Kentucky probably not so scared. Georgia's not so good this year. So
Kentucky's not scared.
Yeah, Kentucky actually
scared.
is welcoming the opportunity to prove that they are the best team in the SEC. Georgia is probably going to get up for this game, but
Trap game.
Definitely a trap game. I just don't know that they're talented enough for it to matter. Auburn's just going to have to come out and be like lackadaisical for that to even be matter.
How up is Katie Johnson going to be for this game?
Oh, wow.
How up is Katie Johnson?
If that's not a storyline going into this game, then I don't know what you've been watching. But he definitely is going to be ready to go put it on his former team. And they're going to be ready to try to take him out of the game immediately. So,
yeah.
Let's see. I will say I'm just going to kind of jump it here. Ashford playing for Niblet in high school will help him at Auburn because Niblet is not like Harsin. Is a lot like Harsin. Excuse me. So you're saying his high school coach and Harsin are similar, so it should be good for him.
Well, he played at Hoover's a really good program.
Yeah.
Right. So it was not like he was playing against some of the best in our state in high school. This kid's got talent. He's got talent.
All right. Zach says we got a good chance to win 8 to 10 games next year. Listen,
we had that chance this year.
Yeah, I'll say this again: 5 to 7 throws different, and this entire season looks very different. Like you can go back and you can just look at crucial moments, a few more throws being made in a couple of games: Birmingham Bowl, the Iron Bowl, South Carolina, Penn State. Um, all of those games look drastically different if you just hit a couple of shots that were there that you left on the table to guys who were open in scenarios, or you make a couple of catches as a wide receiver in situations where we needed it to extend drives. Vastly different. So this was not, outside of the Georgia game, this was not Auburn getting run off the field by anybody. Texas A&M, we had our opportunities in those games, right? Like you just have to make the plays when they're available for you. And there were some coaching missteps, I believe, in those games, but the players had their shots to not leave it down to last minute or in-game scenarios with a coach or fourth down calls with the coach by making plays on first through third down, right? You get down there in the red zone against South Carolina and a bobbled snap, is the difference between a touchdown and a field goal that we end up missing on that drive, right? Like there's just so many things that the players had within their hands to be able to make a difference on how this outcome went. And it's not because they're not talented enough to do those things, right? Like you just have to lock in and do it. Jazzy Joe always coming through with the big bucks. We appreciate the super chat. Challenge complete. Auburn came back. Sorry, I missed the last show. Thank you so much for jumping in here with that.
Jazzy Joe.
That's because of Auburn basketball. For y'all that don't know, Jazzy Joe is an unofficial sponsor of the War Report, always coming through with the challenges and then subsequently giving us some money because of that. Jason Hill, always appreciate your insight. Couldn't run block and pass the pass game in medium to long conversions. And when it was 3rd and 1 or 2, we couldn't run it. Absolutely.
Yeah,
that's a problem. And so that puts you in a scenario, which is why the difference in the previous quarterback being here, that being Bo Nix versus TJ Finley, is so different, because the play call that you need to be able to play in that scenario, you shrink the playbook from what they previously had. You had the opportunity to run something where Bo could go get a couple of yards for you on 3rd down in a run pass situation that you don't have with TJ Finley in there. So your run blocking not being where it needs to be impacts him a lot more than it does the quarterback previous to that. I feel like there's another one that I'm missing in here.
Who let Rodney Gilbert in here?
you know him?
I don't know, but he's talking about Kentucky over AU on Saturday. So I don't know if that's a troll. He's definitely a subscriber. I just don't know why he would come in here and curse at us like that. It's kind of rude.
Let's see if there's any more. I'm just kind of scrolling through here. There's the super chats are coming in pretty quickly. We're gonna talk basketball later. We're here to talk about football tonight, y'all.
Yeah, man. Listen, Ashford changes the dichotomy of this QB room.
Yeah,
and I think this is a signal. These coaches are trying to get their guys in here, and they're trying to improve this through competition and culture. He's a talented guy, man. He was talented enough to land a commitment, from a school that has not been struggling to recruit in football, right? Oregon's been doing pretty well recruiting in football, and he went up there. It didn't work out for him. Now, I think a lot of it, had to do with the whole 2-sport thing.
I'm laughing at Isaac Cooper here. I'm not going to put that up on the screen, but that's funny. Yeah, but anyway, go
ahead. So, that's funny, Isaac. Yeah. You're invited to the cookout. So we've got a good situation, I think, coming up here with a bunch of guys who will compete. Ultimately, it's going to result in more transfers. Somebody's going to lose, and none of these guys, you may get convince a guy to stick around to be 2nd string, but I don't think we have anybody left now that's going to stick around to be 3rd string.
Yeah,
that's just where we're at. I don't think.
I mean, it's unlikely. I just don't see a guy with a bunch of eligibility wanting to waste it on the bench, right? Like, if you're a Demetrius Davis, a redshirt year, not that big a deal, right? Like, I don't lose any of my eligibility. Now the clock's ticking. Right, like every game I don't play is eligibility I don't have left.
Yep.
Same thing for TJ Finley. He doesn't have another redshirt season. He's wasting away eligibility. The difference in the TJ Finley scenario is he's already used his one free transfer. Right, so if he leaves, he's got to sit out next season regardless of where he goes, or he has to transfer to a JUCO.
Down. He's got to go down a level. Yeah.
So those are the only options for TJ Finley right now. Is if he doesn't want to stay and fight for QB1 at Auburn University, he cannot play next year in a division in a Power 5 conference school, or even a Group of 5 school. Like, he's got to go JUCO or sit out a season
Right.
because he's used his free transfer.
So let's talk about Ashford for a second, though, right? Like, so he was in Oregon's 2019 class,
Mm-hmm.
right? So he redshirted, I think, the 2019 season,
Mm-hmm.
and then he had 4 years left to play after that, but he got a COVID year, so I think he still has 4 years left to play.
Yeah.
Ashford still has 4 years left to play, so he does not have to be in a super hurry either if he doesn't win this job.
Correct.
I think it's a pretty decent situation for him. If he can just sit, he could sit behind Calzada for a year or two and just continue to develop, and then take over with 2 years of eligibility left, which is ideal for most programs. You're not throwing a
but
fresh.
he's going to be fighting Holden Garner for that, right?
Yeah, for sure. But again, the experience that you have having been in a college weightlifting program, and he should have the edge on Holden. He should have the edge on Holden.
Physically, for sure. I don't
Right.
think it should be even a competition. I mean, he's already just a bigger guy in general. So
Yeah, having he should be a little bit more mature. Like he should have some things figured out. But ultimately, this is how it should be at most programs. We don't know what it's like to have a talented QB room where the ones, the twos, and the threes are all good. So whenever a guy decides to leave, everybody freaks out. And I think this is Harsin trying to establish this too deep chart where we can depend on the guy who is second in line, and he'll come in and he may have a different skill set than the guy who starts, but he's still got a useful skill set that can be effective within the parameters of what they're trying to build on offense. So that's what I'm looking at right now. I just think adding depth is not a bad thing. So you cannot complain about the guys that are leaving and the guys who are coming in.
Yeah.
Right.
And
like
I think people are panicking a little bit too much about the wide receiver room too. Like they're saying, like I understand the desire to go get a proven receiver. And I said this last year. I just think we've got guys in the room, and if everyone who stayed is bought in already, then we should see the best guys hit the field this year, right? Like,
Right.
I don't think that there's a reason why the best players don't play this year. If everyone who has stayed has either not gotten in the doghouse for some reason because of behavioral things and been shown the door, or decided this isn't for me and I'm out, right? Like, and then we still have, the post-spring exodus that may happen for some people. But I think you're going to see the talent rise to the top with that. So I am not as down on the receiver room as some may be, but I do understand that there may be a necessity to bring in, that guy, but I just don't know if that guy exists currently still in the portal. Like, I just don't know where that guy is coming from. So we'll see. Couple more super chats here. I want to make sure, appreciate everybody for jumping in here. I see a lot of people talking about they would take TJ Finley at their school. I saw a Samford in here, a Southern University. You guys are in here trying to recruit.
Yeah, listen, TJ has a really good support system, man.
Yeah.
And his support system has a plan for him, and they're gonna figure out a path for him that makes sense for him, whether it's here or someplace else, right? I think he comes from a really good family. I'm a big fan of his folks, and listening to them talk, he's easy to root for. Not in love with some of the social media stuff, but at the end of the day, I think that they're putting together a plan for him, based on things that are outside of his control.
Yeah. Jazzy Joe in here with the super chat again. Let's tip our hat to Bo for not bad-mouthing Auburn. 3 of these kids are coming from Oregon, and Bo could have changed their minds to cause this crucial decision for them. It is interesting that we have 3 former Oregon players. I think the Bo Nix transfer to Oregon actually made room for this Robbie Ashford thing to happen.
Yeah, I don't know that he could have changed their minds even if he tried.
Well, I mean, for the other guys, maybe, right? Like, but I mean, they're defensive guys, so I don't know how much, they would have come to Bo Nix and been like, hey, man, what do you were under Harsin. What do you think about this guy?
I wouldn't be asking his opinion. You left.
So, right. I mean,
right?
but that might be the person you want to ask, like, hey, you were just there and you left. Why? Like, what's up in that room?
Well,
But
but that
again, defensive guys, I don't know that that's even as big a deal, and he wouldn't have the interaction with Coach Mason to be able to determine that. And
correct.
then Robbie Ashford as the quarterback, he's like, well, you're coming in here to take one of the spots away, so I don't
Yeah,
really
I
care
don't
what you
hear
got to
what you
say
got to
about
say.
this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Right.
So
You left. You left the spot where you were starting.
yeah. Ed Darby in here says no running clock for A-Day this year. I definitely would like to see a full game this year as opposed to last year. Last year's A-Day was so anticlimactic
Oh
that I
man, it
really
was
don't want
weak.
to see that happen again this year. I am going to have to agree with you on that one. Jazzy
Yeah.
Joe super chats again here to say, do we think we're done at the QB position?
Yes, I do.
I mean, I just unless we see, you know, two transfers out, I don't see a reason why we would need to go get someone else in the QB room. Or the other question would be, who would be the quarterback that would enter this QB room with at least two plausible starters saying, I want to go and compete and think I can win that job, as
Right.
opposed to being at one of the other schools out here that are still needing a starting quarterback.
Yeah,
So I don't know.
with Holden, even if we had two transfers out, I think they just stick with the guys that they have.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, if we get two transfers out, and you're Ashford and Calzada, you feel really good. Right. Because if I'm Ashford, I got almost zero problems thinking I can hold Holden Garriner at bay for at least the backup job.
Yeah.
And if you're Calzada, it's almost like a lock for you to start in that scenario. So those guys, the 1-2 will be kind of set, right? It's just an either or between Ashford and Calzada. But I think we're done. Either way, I think we're done at quarterback.
Yeah. Samuel Haynes is still very firmly in the Demetrius Davis camp, says, keep sleeping. Didi's going to start. Hey, listen, I'm not telling you that he won't start. I'm telling you he's got an uphill fight against him
Yeah,
in his
listen,
hands. It's going to be there's a hill to climb here, and he's not starting it at the front of the pack. Is
yeah,
all I'm
listen.
saying.
What I'm saying is talent will not be the reason that Didi doesn't start.
Correct.
Right? It's going to be other things. It's going to be about culture. It's going to be about fit and culture. So nobody's questioning Didi's talent. That was the biggest Demetrius Davis cheerleader.
Right.
This past spring. So please do not take this as me saying I don't think that I think that these other guys will beat him out on a talent basis. That's not what it is. It's this coaching staff that I'm predicting.
Yeah.
And what they're going to do and the implications it's going to have for the players. Me personally, I said it at the top. I'll say it again. I don't think that Demetrius Davis takes a snap at Auburn University. I don't. Based on what I've seen, what I've heard, and what this coaching staff is doing, and I hope that I'm wrong. But ultimately,
because again, he's a supremely talented guy. So like, I just
why won't we want to see that? But the moves that they're making indicate that we probably won't see him.
Anthony Grant with the super chat here says, "Hey, we missed those O linemen." Yeah, there was some high hopes on a couple of guys. There's still some more targets out there that we're looking at.
Alec Jackson is coming back, right? We got 3 out of 5 O linemen coming up.
So Council's coming back, Nick Brom's coming back, Alec Jackson coming back.
Troxell's coming back, isn't he?
So 4 of them are all returning. The only person from that that started significant snaps last year that did not return is and I can't think of his name right now. I done already deleted.
He transferred. Yeah, he transferred. I know. Well,
Manning transferred, but there was somebody else.
Touchdown Manning.
Yeah, he transferred to Kentucky. There's somebody who I'm not thinking of. The chat will definitely get me together.
That transferred?
No, that is not coming back. I think he went to declared or something like that. I don't know. Anyway, but then we've got Killian Zerier, the German name, or whatever, who is coming back. So we've got guys with starting experience. Ham, thank you. Brodarius Ham is who is not returning this year. I knew that.
But check this out.
Council is coming back though. Like some Ed Darby said, Council is returning this year. He's using like some kind of COVID 7-year exception.
Now,
he had like a medical red shirt, so he actually has one more year of eligibility that he is taking advantage of.
So let me say this about this O-line, because I made it on another broadcast. The point, this is such a developmental position. These O-line were
Keandre Jones is returning. Yes.
Like we got a little lineman coming back.
Yeah.
The O-line is such a developmental position, and our O-linemen were built to do something different under the last coach, right? 2 off seasons in Harsin's strength and conditioning program may be enough to get these guys to the place where they can play the brand of football that Brian Harsin is trying to play. 1 off season is not necessarily enough at that position, but your body takes a beating at O-line, and the strength that it takes, it is hard to develop in 1 off season unless you're on something. So assuming that these guys are doing it the natural way, this line could be drastically better in 2022 than they were in 2021, just based on strength and conditioning. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do.
Yeah, it's going to be definitely interesting. Listen, I've been seeing the same thing that you all have been seeing on social media with former players that have just kind of, had issues with the current coaching staff. Differences of opinion on how you run things doesn't mean that something is bad just because it's not a fit for you, right? And so I think that it's a little premature to say that the coaching staff is wrong, or it's wrong to say that the players were wrong. Listen, they have a certain way that they were accustomed to because of how they came into the college football situation, that was a better culture fit for them. So I am a strong advocate of being where you are celebrated and wanted. If you don't feel that Auburn is quote unquote home for you, then by all means find a place that is home for you. And that doesn't mean that anybody's got to be wrong or anyone has to be upset about the outcomes of that thing. We can have a peaceable splitting of ways. You decide to go your direction, I go my way, and and everybody can be happy at the end of the day. But it is what it is, and I wish every one of those guys the absolute best in their careers and whatever they decide to do going forward.
I'll tell you this. There was an IG live that happened with Kobe recently, and there were some current players on it, and it was not a good look.
Yeah.
Just wasn't a good look. I'm not going to go into details about it, but I don't think it was a good thing if you were on it.
Correct.
Especially for it to be that particular player with the issues that he left with. And so I will never understand a player seeing a guy self-destruct and then saying,
well, just a person in general, like you can't be friends with someone watching them do that. And then tying
yourself to it as well, though, associating your name with it.
Right.
Like, hey, bro, listen, there's going to be blowback from this. So before I catch some shrapnel to the chest, I'm going to stand back while you self-destruct.
Right.
And I'm here. I'm your guy, but I'm not going down with you.
Right.
Right. Because you
right,
have made
because your responsibility in that decision is either to distance yourself or stop him from doing it.
Right.
You can't do the option C should not be participate or idly stand by and laugh.
Unless you're about to do what he's doing.
Correct.
Right. Unless you're looking to get what he got. I just don't understand that. Right. So social media is killing some of these guys. It is, Smoke has put some things out there that I'm just like, come on, bro. Like, even if you're not coming back. Right. And I don't think he was given an option to come back.
Yeah.
Again, one of those players, the staff was like, appreciate your contributions.
Right.
Peace.
And so listen, and this, I want you guys to hear when we're saying this. This is not the first time a player has left Auburn University with bad taste in their mouth. It just we are close associates with players who, when they left Auburn, didn't want nothing to do with Auburn anymore.
Oh man, the stories are funny.
Right. But they outside of their circle of people, you wouldn't know that. Right. Rumors fly around and, oh, man, I heard from somebody who talked to somebody. Right. You hear that stuff, but you wouldn't hear them say it out of their mouth unless you were friends with them. And so, again, in the era of social media, it's not just you and your friends sitting around talking. You're going live, and now it's thousands upon thousands of people who get to interact with this content. And you have to be careful what you put out there. It's not closed door conversations no more. This is not the mid-90s anymore. It's a different time. And if you want to be in that space where you get to have closed doors conversations, turn the cameras off, put the phones down.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, in this era of social media, you will get 200% of the attention that you ask for.
Correct.
If you're a player. And here's what I was told about our current coach. listen, man, he's not going to go around town kissing babies and politicking and doing. This man wants to coach football. So all the extracurricular stuff, he's not a huge fan of, right? And he's got people who handle that for him.
Mm-hmm.
So politics need to be done. He's got people who do that. If babies need to be kissed and hands need to be shook, he's got people who do that for him.
Right.
Right. If you're a player, I think personally he's looking for more players in that mold where they're just coming in to put their head down and work and leave all the other extracurricular stuff at the door.
Right.
Right.
And if we want to talk about differences in programs, that's where you find the big difference in some of the more successful programs and the ones that are off the rails, is that they have a culture that says, come in here and work. All that other stuff,
when
you graduate, you got all the rest of your life to do that. While you are a football player at this program, look at the basketball team. The basketball team gets online and they have fun, but you don't see this stuff.
You don't see any of this stuff, man.
Yeah.
I'm telling
and it's
you
different.
right
I
now.
get it. It's different when you're winning. We weren't winning a lot of games last year, and you still didn't see our players take to social media doing a lot. Justin Powell exited the Auburn University basketball program unceremoniously because the culture around the basketball program was, that ain't how we get down.
Mm-hmm.
You can speculate all you want to outside of these doors. He wasn't going on live and doing a bunch, because that's just a different culture of what had been set around that program.
Right. But you don't stand to gain anything from that, though, right? No. The battles that they start with the coaches on their way out, you lose that every single time.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, you lose. And so it's not in your best interest. And they're not even pushing the coach is not pushing a narrative other than, culture. That's it. That's the only narrative he's pushed all season.
Yeah.
Is that we need to rebuild culture here. And he's giving guys a chance to get on board with that culture. Some guys got on board. Some guys came along a little slower than others, and some have just refused.
Right.
Right. I think some of those players he could afford to sit. Others he could not afford to sit. But now that the season is over, he's like, all right, now that it's done, peace. Yeah. I'm going to go out and I'm going to get the number one JUCO safety in the country. Right. I'm going to get the number one overall JUCO player in the country. I'm going to get guys who can come in here and be immediate impact players. And this program is going to evolve with or without you.
Right.
No guy is bigger than the program. And some of these guys have forgotten that. Right. So to be a part of something special, you have to be a part of something special.
Right.
You have to be a part of it. And I don't get it. Like, the good that social media has done for sports is apparent. When it works, it works. The SID for Auburn men's basketball, her name is Marlene Naver. I hope I said her last name right. And they have taken social media and they have turned it into this thing. We got the deep fried memes and we barrage the other team's score post with memes, and we do all these things that they're using in recruiting that are positive. And it's all been built around an attitude by the coach. When Bruce came in, I was in a Twitter space and they were talking about how he came here and he got in the mix with the students and he was the ultimate cheerleader for his squad before they started winning. People bought into that culture, and now, man, he's just the ultimate player's coach, and they win. His process is working, and there's no question. So kids coming out of high school see that and like, yes, I can go play for this guy and go pro in a year.
Right.
Or I can go play for him for a couple of years and go pro in a couple of years if that's where I'm at. Either way, this gives me the best chance to maximize my athletic potential here and in the future. That's what Harsin is trying to build on the football side. It didn't happen for Bruce in 2 years. So this coach deserves time to get this together. I think that a lot of people have just underestimated how much dysfunction existed before he got here. Right. And we paid $21 million to ditch the last guy for a reason.
Yeah.
Give him a chance.
I see Jason Hill saying here, if you think Coach Gus Malzahn was soft, you have no clue what you're talking. It's not, I don't think it's about softness, right?
Not about soft.
It's just, and I know he's not responding to us. He's responding to the chat.
Okay.
I do think that people use the word soft a little bit too much. He's just a different kind of coach, right? Like he is not the type of structure that he puts around his program is not the same structure that these guys who came in under Gus were accustomed to. So Coach Malzahn and Coach Harsin are just different people, and some people respond to different styles differently. And again, I'll say this again. Because something is not a fit does not mean that it's wrong. It just means it's wrong for you. Right? Like I
Yeah,
cannot wear my little brother's clothes. That doesn't mean that his clothes are bad clothes. It just means they don't fit me. Right?
yeah.
Like, and that's fine. I
Again,
don't need to wear his clothes.
I would argue though that some of this stuff is wrong because of the results that we saw. Right. So
I think
again,
that there's room to say that. I don't know. Again, I do think that the culture breeds something different in the results on the field. But again, I think it's too early to determine whether or not Brian Harsin's way is right or wrong.
well, when we're talking about whether guys show up on time or not, that's not right. That's very black and white.
Yeah, agreed.
Right.
Again, I'm just talking. I'm speaking specifically right or wrong as far as Harsin is concerned.
Correct. Yeah. But his way is I'm not going to put up with guys showing up late. You will be on time for practice. You will do the basic minimum things that any winning coach would require of his team. I saw some inconsistencies in the way our last coach handled things.
Right.
And
that's the bigger problem for me is the inconsistency
it's
in how things are
consistencies.
handled. You can't just decide this guy is impervious from being blamed for anything, but like this dude does one thing and you're out.
And he's off the team.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Come
that.
on, man.
That it can't be a thing. Which is why I say again. I'll reiterate. And Jason Hill said he's correcting. It was Coach Garner that he was saying it was not soft. I don't know that anybody thinks Coach Garner was. Everybody thought he was a hard ass. Like I don't know anybody who thought Coach Garner wasn't like a really strict cushion. But again, I don't think that Coach Malzahn was soft. I think he was soft with certain people. He was a more lenient on certain people, but in some instances, he was way too heavy-handed. And that's the bigger issue for me is the inconsistency of like, well, why is this guy getting away with it, but this one isn't? Like, what's the difference here? And I don't know that there's room for that. I'd much rather this is what it is. This is the standard. Everybody has to meet it, or you're not going to play. Then, well, this guy gets away with it. Why don't I?
Well, in year one, right, we saw a tiny bit of a purge in that guys weren't off the team, but they just weren't on the field. Mm-hmm. And there was a minimum expectation he had to meet in terms of winning games that we fell below. So you couldn't clean house completely in year one. Mm-hmm. You just couldn't. His job is still to win football games. So he could not tear it all down in year one. And in this offseason, I think you're seeing, okay, now we can afford to tear a few more bricks off this foundation. And while we have time to get guys in here in the spring and rebuild for the fall, 2023 is the year that we judge this coaching staff by fully. Right. I stand by that. You can judge them on recruiting. You can judge them on results on the field. By 2023, this has to be a 9-win team with a top 10 recruiting class.
Right.
In 2022, man, they were behind the 8 ball on this recruiting class already because they were a year late in getting to a lot of these kids. And look what they still turned in a top 15 class.
Right.
Got some great guys.
It's hard to sell. It's hard to sell portal guys with limited results. Like it's just not going to be the same type of situation where you can go say, look what I did last year. There's not especially on the offensive side of the ball, there's not a bunch that's appealing to anybody as an offensive recruit in the portal for that.
Right, right.
Let me grab a couple more chats here. Jazzy Joe says he was starting to get frustrated with the football talk timeout, starting to frown a lot. Auburn basketball. Let's go. Listen, I feel you, man. Listen, we got to talk about this stuff, though, because it's relevant today, and we will be back fully on basketball. Well, not fully, but 90% basketball when we get back to the next live. But definitely appreciate the super chat and the fervent enthusiasm behind Auburn basketball. It deserves that energy.
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited. I'm excited about what this room can be. A lot of people are very lukewarm on Calzada. I'm actually, the more I watch his tape from last year, I'm a lot higher on him than I was.
I'm going to be honest. I still haven't dove into that tape, and we do have some all 22 film to be able to evaluate. We've got our game, and I've got one other game, I think, from Zach Calzada,
Bama,
or maybe
right? We got
two
Bama.
other. Yeah, so
Um,
we'll definitely be doing some stuff like that. I'd be interested to see, Jason. I know you're a big QB guy. I'd be interested to see what you saw in the Zach Calzada film that you liked and disliked, man. So I don't want to steal your ideas or anything like that, but I would be interested to hear your take on that.
yeah, I mean, listen, the more I watched him, the more I saw a kid who, was somewhat of a gamer, man.
Yeah,
He played
moxie.
he played hurt against us. He played on a bum shoulder against us. And he did some great things there. Uh, with a less than stellar offensive line, less than stellar pass protection. They were absolutely abysmal at points in pass protection last season, and he was still able to accomplish some things behind that line. So with a little better pass protection, I can tell you he would have been, 25 to 30% better behind our offensive line last year, the way we pass protected for our quarterbacks by the numbers. And we play in, and that's not a stretch to say because we play in the same division. So we have 6 common opponents or 5 common opponents.
Yeah.
So we know that. We know going up against the same guys what he was able to do, and they just did not protect at a very good clip last year for him. So if we could get some of that same production and improve some for him, he could be dynamic, in this system with what they're asking him to do. And with Harsin play calling, I liked the play calling in the bowl game for the most part. I did. And then there's Ashford, who has just got a lot to prove because, like you said, we don't have a ton of tape on him.
Yeah, the best we could do is possibly find some stuff from the spring game at Oregon to see how he plays against,
he needs to have a good spring. He needs to have a good spring here.
And that should be the focus for, like, any player who has panicked because someone else has been introduced to the room that you currently are sitting in, whether, I don't care what position it is, you need to be saying to yourself, I'm going to outwork him in the spring. Because none of that stuff matters. We remind you, one of the friends of this program was a quarterback that came in and won the job. And how many practices? 8 practices?
Chris Todd.
Yeah. How many? It was 8 practices.
8 practices. 8
right.
practices.
So none of this other my mindset should be, I don't care who you bring in here. They're going to have to fight me for this spot.
Right.
I'm going to outwork who. I don't go bring Caleb Williams. You can go get whoever you want to. I'm still going to be the starter next year because I'm going to outwork everybody else because I believe in my physical abilities and my talent. But again, if you've put yourself in poor graces with people and you're having to do something to prove that you're just bought in before you get to show your physical tools, that's a different story.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, then it becomes, now you've got to fight a battle on 2 fronts. It's not just go out and outwork him on the field. Now you got to go prove to QB coach, offensive coordinator, head coach, whoever it is, position coach, that I'm also bought in. It ain't just about how hard I work on the field. And unfortunately, whether you want to call it politics, playing favorites, that's a part of life. I don't care where you work. Unless you're going to work for yourself, a part of it is your interpersonal skills. Your ability to appeal to people will determine your level of success in whatever industry you're in. And if you don't learn that in football or whatever sport that is that you're in, where someone else determines how often you get to play, then you're going to have a hard lesson in life ahead of you after that. It's just, It is what it is.
So let me say this. I want to address this comment. Harsin and company to get ahead of NIL and make deals for the offensive linemen specifically to start without question. It's the university is not making deals for players. That's not what NIL is, right? Because none of this money is coming from the university. What's happening is businesses with rooting interests in the schools are stepping up and offering these NIL deals to these players. In Miami, there was a local gym owner. He owned a chain of gyms, and he said every Miami football player will get $500 a month from my business. It was something like $495,000 or something for the year to sponsor a small thing if you were on the roster. The businesses are the ones making the deal. So what you're really calling on is I don't know, man, Yellowwood, reasons.
Yeah.
Any business that has rooting interest in Auburn or roots in the community at Auburn to step up and offer these deals to these players, to make Auburn, in the big markets. That's what's happening, right? Texas has got all that oil money. Look what they did. They went and they made some crazy deal with all the offensive linemen. And listen, they're getting ahead of it. They know they're coming to the SEC. They've got to start beefing up that line now before they get to the conference. I think you'll see something similar at Oklahoma, but this really is going to be about the difference between the haves and the have-nots is going to grow with NIL, because some schools are not going to have a rich alumni base that can just fork over money for players. Right. This is the legal way of doing it. So rather than an underhand, under the table deal, if you're a business owner, and a lot of these rich alumni they can just essentially funnel that money from their business to the player and then just ink a deal with them. Now, who was it? Charlie Batch from Eastern Michigan. Mm-hmm. He was offering Caleb Williams $1.5 million or something NIL deal to come play at Eastern Michigan. Now it's Eastern Michigan, and if you're Caleb Williams, you're thinking, if I can get $1 million from them, I can get $3 million from Texas or USC or any place else, right? But it's not really coming from the school. So I just want to make sure people understand that. Brian Harsin is not signing anybody to an NIL deal.
Yeah.
It's not how NIL works.
Yeah, and so I think what people are hoping happens is that the university and when they think football program, they automatically think Brian Harsin. Brian Harsin probably would not be the guy doing this anyway. It would likely be some other person on the staff would, as you're trying to recruit people, also try to go do the recruiting job of getting those businesses on board and say, hey, here's an NIL package that we've already got ready for you with this guy. You just need to sign with us, right? Like, so it becomes this thing where we're pitching more than just the football side of things. But again, Brian Harsin, from all accounts, is laser focused on football. So anything that is business and how you go, he's like, all right, when you get in here, we'll figure that stuff out. Do you want to come play football here? Not do you want to make money at Auburn? Sure, we can figure out a way for you to make money. But do you want to play football, and are you a good football and culture fit for Auburn University? And that's where his focus is, to his detriment maybe in some scenarios with some of these more high-profile athletes and players. But that is what it is, Super chat here from Renaissance Man 2008. I think the Auburn job is a very hard job to succeed at. I think that wore Gus down, similar to Tubbs when he was initially hired. He was more in the mold of a disciplinarian. Look at his opening presser. I don't know that I ever would have called. I think he was a very strict tactician type of person, right? Because of the way that his offense was designed, it required you to be meticulous in the way that you execute it in order for it to work. Like, it was literally, if it wasn't perfect, then it probably wasn't going to work the way that he designed it. So he required that level of precision. But then he realized, it doesn't have to be perfect if I just have really great athletes that can make up for mistakes. And so he got more lax in that manner and just realized, well, I just need to go get some guys, because the guys are really what matters.
Right.
And so I think that was a pivot, not necessarily in him getting worn down and becoming more soft over time. He just realized what the actual game was. It wasn't, am I going to be able to out execute or strategic? Like, that didn't matter. You could have the best play call in the world and a Mack truck run through the middle of your offensive line, and it doesn't matter. And that's what he realized as he started to get further into that process.
Yeah, I don't know that Auburn is any harder than any other SEC West job. I think that's just the SEC West, right? Like,
it's a little bit more difficult just because of our crossover game every year is Georgia. Right?
For sure.
You're that, like, there aren't very many schools that every year you're going to play perennial top 5 schools.
Yeah,
every year you're going to play Alabama.
Point.
You're going to play Georgia every single season. You can only say that at Auburn University. Like, if you can name for me another program that has to play 2 schools of that caliber every year and then go through the remainder of the SEC West gauntlet, I don't know.
Yeah, that's tough. That's really tough. I mean, I'm not denying it's a hard job. If anything, Auburn makes the job harder, right? I think our meddling makes the job harder, and there are people who work
Tennessee is a
yeah.
good one. Tennessee,
Mhm.
but like they have the
Mhm.
rest of the SEC East that they get to play though. Like they also get Vandy every
Correct.
year, right? And they get, South Carolina is becoming more difficult, but they had a struggling South Carolina. They had a falling apart Florida every year. So yes, you get those same two, but then you don't get the rest of the SEC West. So it's close, but it ain't the same.
It ain't the same, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, just looking at this, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, all right, so here we are, right? You got a tough gig, and you're bringing in talent, and they brought in Robbie Ashford. This is where we started, right? We brought in Robbie Ashford, and he is joining the QB fray here.
Right.
And what I would ask is the same thing I've been asking fans of Calzada, like when we don't have to crown him king or throw him away at this point,
Right.
and I would ask fans to just temper their expectations one way or the other, because anybody claiming to know what this kid is, I don't think that's fair.
Yeah,
I don't think that's
I'll
fair at
say the
all.
same thing I've said about TJ Finley. We haven't
Yeah.
seen a full
Full.
season of him play football. Now, Calzada's an older player, but he
Mhm.
hasn't played a full season as a starter yet
Right.
for anybody's school. So, like, to project that forward, you can look at a couple of things and say, well, this looks good, but you just don't know. You don't know what you don't know until he develops into something. And I think you have to at least give a guy 12, 13 starts before you realize, okay, this ain't gonna change. Right.
Correct. Yeah, and that's where I was at with TJ. I just felt like we just haven't seen enough of him. Where some people were just saying, "See, I told you he was trash. He was this. He was that," and I just don't have the energy for those people, because again, it'll be the next guy under that fire. Now, once we've seen a guy for 2 years, I think it's reasonable to put some expectation on him. But like less than 8 starts, it's just so hard, because you're going to have to work through some things as an athlete at some point in your career, right? Like some of the best quarterbacks ever, when they make the jump to the next level, like Peyton Manning's first year in the league, he led the league in interceptions.
Right.
He was quite clearly a good quarterback, but even some of the greatest have adjustment periods that they have to have. Right. And I'm not comparing TJ Finley
Yeah.
to Peyton
Yeah. I
Manning.
was about to say,
Yeah, but
let's be
like,
clear. Nobody is saying that TJ
no,
Finley is the second coming of Peyton
Peyton
Manning.
Manning.
That's
But what I'm saying is, if one of the greatest can take a year to adjust to the speed of the game, everybody else might need a little time to adjust as well too. Right. So Calzada may need some time to adjust here. That's why I think he's the front runner, because he's already got a whole year of starting experience in the SEC West. And
yeah.
he may be able to adjust a little faster in our program than even TJ, who he was here, but he didn't get the starts. He didn't get the reps, right? Like in-game reps. He didn't get as many
Right.
in-game reps as Calzada did, right? So and then Ashford, who has 0.
Right.
So just give these guys a chance, man, to get in here and compete. I think A-Day will be really important for all these quarterbacks. And what we need to see during A-Day is we just need to see consistent throws.
Right.
What I'm looking forward to is seeing 3 quarterbacks that might actually have a chance to start this A-Day.
Yeah.
Because that's
You know what? The quarterback competition is, if you're not intrigued by this,
yeah,
then I
right.
don't
Yeah,
know.
this
I
is
just don't know.
compelling
Like,
stuff.
yeah. This is something that I'm looking forward to seeing playing out and seeing who eventually becomes the entrenched starter for this football team. And as you said earlier, my sincere hope is that whoever won barely won, and not because it was the person who screwed up the least, but like we had 2 starting caliber quarterbacks in the room, and they just had to pick somebody. But if that first person ever goes down, the next person that's coming in is a problem too. It's a
Right.
problem for whoever it is that's going to be under center or taking shotgun snaps, whatever it's going to end up being for Auburn University in the upcoming season.
Yeah. I just think you got to look at it and give all these guys a chance. Give this coaching staff a chance. All this tweeting at the coaches saying, I think this guy should be going. And I mean, I don't have any energy for any of that stuff, man. Like, give these guys a chance to do the job. Trust the head coach to make the right decision on the quarterbacks moving forward. I think in year 1, there were just a lot of questionable things that Harsin could not have controlled because of what he inherited. So he didn't have much of a choice over who he started at quarterback in his first year because of what the structure of what was left, right? He had to bring in a backup from a school that missed the whole spring. So he was stuck with the quarterback that he had. And, look at what he's doing though, man. Like he's cleaning house, dude. And it started, it may, again, the same way a lot of these other guys are leaving. I think the same type of conversation was had with our last quarterback that is being had with a lot of these other guys about what we're trying to do moving forward and whether you're a good fit here. Nobody is immune from this. And that's the message that he's trying to send. No one player is bigger than the program. A lot of them had that in their head, right? That, I'm this, I'm that, I'm this, I'm that. And this coach is just saying, listen, he's somewhat coaching for his coaching life next year. Right. It's because even if we're assuming he gets a third year, right, depending on how he finishes next season, this could be one of those mid-season fires in 2023.
For people wondering, is he going to make it through the entirety of next season? Likely, but you don't want to start year 3 on the hot seat.
No, you don't, right?
Yeah.
And so, the players, having that being said, you need guys who are bought into what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of guys who weren't got shown the door or were highly encouraged to seek someplace else to play.
Yeah.
At the very least, like if you're going to stay, this is how we're going to do it. If you're not, then, there was a conversation. I'll leave the name of the player out, but he went up to Harsin and just asked him, hey, will I ever earn a scholarship here? And Harsin told him no. And I respect that he was at least able to give that player the opportunity to decide whether he wanted to stay here or not based on that, instead of selling guys that if you compete, you'll have a shot. And in your mind, they really have no shot because you have no intention of starting that player. Right. So, those conversations have been had. That's what we're seeing. Again, I'm addressing this because a lot of you have asked me over and over again, what do we make of all these transfers? At some schools, some of it is just part of the game now, right? This is part of it. The portal is here. Every school is experiencing this. I think Georgia still has a very low amount of transfers, but Bama rocketed up after the championship came. They went from like 3 to like 13 overnight. Since November, they have chosen to enter the portal. And Auburn is just in line with that. I think Ole Miss has the most in the conference. They've got like 16 or 17 guys in the portal now since November. So we're going to be okay. What Auburn is experiencing, a lot of other schools are experiencing. What we're hoping is that we have the staff that will manage it better than the other coaches in our conference.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's all you have to understand what the new reality is and manage that new reality. If you're still coaching football like 2018, then you haven't embraced the new reality that is the free transfer that you get in the portal, the COVID year. Like you just have to change the reality of how you manage your rosters. And it's yet to be seen how well this coach manages his roster, because we see this upheaval because of the transfer of power that happened between the two coaches. And it looks like, oh my God, we're losing so many people. This coach needs to get it together. And what you're actually seeing is you got to clean house to make room for new stuff.
Yeah, man. Listen, spring cleaning is not always fun, but the end result is good, right? You get a clean house, you've got your stuff in order, and then you can just decide how to move forward from there. So if you are watching this is Portal Madness. This is a War Report live special. I am live here with my guy Ike Jones. If you are watching this and you're wondering why you don't have a green name, become a patron. Patron level. We decided to open this chat up to everybody, but sometimes when we go live like this, the chat is patron or supporter level members only. So become a channel member, help support the content that we're putting out here. We're working hard to bring you guys news and reactions. We talked about Ashford. I mentioned it. I teased it weeks ago when we found out he was at bowl practice. But the information we had was solid, and we gave Ashford a chance to work out that process of whether he was coming to Auburn or not. There were a lot of moving parts. Looks like the information that we got was 100% dead on, because now he is a part of Brian Harsin's vision about what Auburn football will be moving forward from the quarterback position. And there's more to come. So transfers should be nearing an end now. Portal transfers.
We'll get another wave post spring, but it's not going to be it. We're probably going to see a flurry here again over the next couple of days, and then that's going to be it until the spring.
Correct. Yeah, because if you want to get into spring camp, you got to be where you're going to be right now in the next few days. I think the 19th is the cutoff for a lot of schools, and then after spring, I think you have until May something to get, if you want to get into summer somewhere, and then be on a roster and eligible to play for the fall. So we're not done yet, but hopefully the result is this spring, after competitions flesh out, the depth chart looks a little clearer, and then guys have a good understanding of where they stand and what they need to do for themselves, whether it's here at Auburn or taking their talents elsewhere.
Right. Cool, man. Well, we're about to get out of here. We appreciate y'all jumping on here. We were over 400 strong for a good portion of the time tonight. Always good to fellowship with the War Report family. We are out until, unless something else crazy happens, the next time that we are going to see you guys is going to be Wednesday. And we will be breaking down some of the other stories and, of course, talking more Auburn basketball. But until then, and as always, War Eagle.
War Eagle.